Okay, I think we're at test number 3 right now. How's the lighting look?
I'm waiting for the refresh.
I guess we can see our eye better. I went back to this direction because I think we were having issues with the other direction.
Okay. Oh,
Looks
I
good?
think you got it.
Okay, I think we're going to do it this way now, so
Yeah.
sorry for the technical difficulties. Okay, so I'll start from the beginning. So this is going to be our project today, is working on how to shade an eye more realistically. So last week, if you did the video or joined me, we did this eye. So there is a pretty big difference between these two. One notable thing is that this one has more detail, but also softer shading involved with it. This one was much harder, a bit more harsh in the lines. So I'm going to be teaching you how to get a softer look today. So what we're going to start with is talking about the difference of hard versus soft lines. So I talked about it briefly last time in the previous eye video. I'm going to cover it over just a little bit again because I want to make sure we're all on the same page. So what I mean by hard lines is just like it sounds. When you go to draw a line, it's very harsh. Sometimes, and this is particularly true with portraits, but in all of art, whether it's painting or drawing, there are soft edges and hard edges. So a soft line is one that can still appear as a line, but it's shaded, like it's very, very soft. And in portraits, this happens a lot. And that's probably one of the number one mistakes that beginners do with portraits is everything is hard. And you need to practice how to do a softer line. So one of the things I want you guys to be practicing on your own at home is different kinds of shading techniques. So if you guys have artist pencils at home, it will be something you use eventually. But for today, we're only going to be using an HB pencil. I'm using a mechanical because it keeps the point sharp all the time. If you have a regular pencil, that will work just fine as well. But you are going to need to keep a sharpener nearby because at some point your lead will get dull. And to do some of the details that are in here, you're going to need to have your pencil sharp. So an HB pencil, and then we're going to use one different tool today that we didn't use last time, which is going to be a cotton swab. So most people have these at home. If not, you can do most of this without it anyway, but this is just a very helpful tool. This is a dupe for using this. So this is called a blending stump. So you might have heard of one, and maybe you even have one. If you have this, you can go ahead and use this. But I will be using this today because that's actually what I used for doing this eye, because I figured most everybody has this at home. But either one will work. Now, on the topic of shading, the reason I want you guys to really be practicing your pressure control is because with this project, I only used an HB. And if you've ever seen drawing pencils, they come in different numbers and letters to symbolize different hard and softnesses of the pencil. So like right next to me, I have 2 different pencils. These are artist pencils. I have a 4H, which is what they call a harder pencil, which means that when I go to shade, it doesn't apply very much graphite, so it's light. And then an 8B, which is a bit on the darker side, if I go to use this one, it is really dark. So it's nice to have artist pencils, but here's the trick. If I use an HB pencil and I just use my pressure control and where I hold it changes, I can really get different levels of shade. So if I hold my pencil towards the end and I very lightly think about like you're just sort of barely touching the paper, you can get a very light shade. And if you can see it on the video, that's how light it is. It's very, very light. Then if I want to hold it more like a standard, like if you were to be writing, you can get very dark. So there's a lot of shading you can do with just an HB. And in fact, I think it'd be really good to practice doing as much as you can with just an HB. I think you're going to be overall more well-rounded as an artist if you can do this first. Okay. So now that I've talked about different shading, because that will come into play with this picture, let's start actually drawing this. So let's start working with the eye and the eye shape. So if you were following my video last week, either watching it with us or doing it afterwards, we talked about drawing the eye, there we go, starting with a half almond shape. So I'm going to start in the middle of my paper, and I'm going to draw a half almond shape. Now, I will post, hopefully in the comment section here today, different kinds of shaped eyes. I think I had different students ask me if this is how all shaped eyes look. No, it's not. So more or less, and I'm over exaggerating, but see how I made the dome in the middle of the eye? Not everyone has a dome in the middle. So some people have a dome towards the inside, some people have a dome towards the outside, and some people have a dome in the middle. So shaped eyes can come in different ways. I'm just doing mine in the middle for the practice of this, but please know that portraits and all the features of portraits come in many, many ways. God made us all very, very different. Okay, so I've made my half almond shape. Now I'm going to draw the circle in the middle. Make sure to draw this very lightly because you will have to either draw this again, erase, fix, tweak. And if you draw this too harsh, it is really hard to get this to go away. Now, if you watched it last week, I talked about that if you can draw a complete circle and have it sit above that lid line. You will be erasing it, but it can kind of give you a really good idea whether or not you drew a good circle. And spend your time on the eye making it a nice good circle, because if your circle looks weird, the rest of the eye will look weird. All right, I think I'm pretty happy with my circle. What I'm doing now is just lightening up the lines, because sometimes with the mechanical, I get really fat areas in the line, and I don't really want that. At least not yet. Okay, so the next step that we're going to have to do is actually change the outer shape of the eye. So even though I kind of drew a half almond shape, the other reason you want to be drawing lightly with this portrait is because you may erase quite a bit. And I drew the half almond shape, but I don't think that's quite the finished product shape that I want to do. So if you look at this beginning eye, and I will be posting this in the comments too, so if you need this one to see better, I will be posting it in the comment section. What I'm looking at here now is what this negative space is, the white shape looks like. And that might mean I have to shrink the size. So this is a really long on this side. I'm going to shrink this up. So I'm going to cut first the top off since I don't need a full circle. So I will be getting rid of this top part of the circle. Then I'm going to extend down this lid, and I'm looking at what this white shape is over here. And it's about that big. So I made it too big the first time around, which is fine. I'm just going to erase part of it. Now, we talked about this last time with the last eye project. Everybody has a different amount of space underneath of this eye. Sometimes you'll notice that it will just touch the eye. It actually cut off the bottom a little bit, so you actually won't see a full circle. And sometimes you actually will see a full circle. Mine has just ever so close to the bottom of that circle. So in mine, it is a full circle. It's just really, really close. So I'm going to come under here. This is where our soft line comes into play. I'm going to very, very lightly indicate where this lid is, but it's really light, you guys. I'm barely pushing. And if you guys are joining in, give me a shout out and say hi. Or if you have any questions, please at any point ask, and I will try to answer your question the best I can. I just made my opening a little bit smaller again, you guys. I didn't like how big it was. You'll see already we're spending way much more time on this project than we did on the last one. Okay, now we're going to come work on the inside of the eye. So I actually think my eyes are flipped from last week. If you notice, Last week I had the tear duct in here. This week the tear duct will be in here, so we completely flipped them. So I'm going to come in this way. Come tapering in. Then I talked about how there's a kind of a little bit of a triangle, more or less, right in here. I don't know if the camera's picking it up. I actually have two little spaces. I have one and then an itty bitty one right here on the edge. Okay, so I'm just staring at my eye, making sure I like everything about it. Yeah, I think I'm okay with that. All right, now let's start talking about a little bit of mapping out the inside of the eye. So remember from last week, the eye was really simplified. Remember I talked about there's 3 circles. Remember 3 circles. And then of course I said, ironically, this one has 4. But always remember that you have your outer circle, which is the actual eye. Then you have your middle circle, which is what? The pupil. Then you always have a highlight. That's why I always say the 3, because you need to have a reflection in it. And then if you remember from last week, I made this somewhat harsh line through the middle to indicate that this is the shaded upper area, and then this is the bottom, more lit area. If you notice about this one, it's kind of similar. It's just not as harsh as this one. So what we're going to start with is, we've just done the outer circle, so that's circle 1. Circle 2 is going to be the pupil. Get it right about in the middle. Now, do not draw this hard. Last week, if you remember, I drew this pretty hard. Today, I'm not going to, because there's going to be a little bit of shading coming outside of it, so keep it pretty light. And then I had my highlight in a different area this time. I actually had it towards the top. Make sure if you guys have questions, you let me know.
People watching. 8.
Well, hi, 8 people. I don't know who you are because I can't see, but happy that you guys were able to join in today. Okay, so I've made my outer circle 1, my inner circle 2, and my highlight 3. So now we're going to begin shading. And this is kind of my favorite part, but I hope it is yours too. So we're going to start lightly, and we're going to build up and get darker as we go along. So I'm going to start on the inside. I can do a very medium shade through here. Not doing anything harsh yet. And then just like the last eye, I'm going to start adding in shadow up at the top. And remember from last week I talked about your lid does cast a little bit of shadow into your eye. That's why in this one, I over-exaggerated it, but that's why I made it so dark, because this lid does cast a little bit of a shadow. So I am going to come in here and I'm going to start adding in. You notice I'm holding my pencil far back. I'm adding in a little bit of shadow. Hi, Rhonda. I can't remember, Rhonda, if you and your kids wanted to learn portrait, but hopefully this will be fun for you guys. And it comes in handy for even in drawing class if you guys want to do a figure. At some point, even if it's itty bitty, you will have a little bit of portrait features to do. Now I dragged some of my shadow down underneath here because there is a very light amount. Now I'm going to come back at the top and I'm going to begin adding more shadow. You will also notice something else, you guys. My pencil lines are very close together. What I'm trying to do is have no big gaps. It's easier to do in small things, I guess, but be careful of like you're going so fast that you're leaving lots of gaps. Go slow. You want to make it nice and filled in. Now, I didn't do this in the beginning yet, but as I'm going along, I'm going to very gently come along the outside near the top, and I'm sort of outlining the eye just a little bit firmer. So I'm still stopping with my shadow approximately halfway, because if you noticed from this first eye, there's actually a little bit of detail in there, and I don't want to go any further because I have to put that detail in.
You have 10 people joining in. 11.
Yay, hi guys, if you just joined in. Okay. So let's start talking about the shapes that are inside here. So the large circle here is called the iris. So the iris is where the color is contained. And that's where you're going to see a lot of these little shapes in here. So you see all these little shapes in here? So this is okay. When I have everyone do portraits, I kind of have you at some point, you're going to have to go look at a mirror. Maybe you're staring deeply into your sibling's eyes, but start looking at people's eyes and you're seeing what this is. So this is all that beautiful shape and colors that you see in people's eyes. That's what we're starting to indicate with. So in that first eye we did absolutely none of it. There was no shapes in here. But now we're going to start adding the shapes in here. So this is where you're going to have to make sure if you're using a regular pencil, you're going to need to be sharpened. If you're using a mechanical, it will stay sharp, so no worries there. So what I'm going to begin doing is coming out from the pupil. So what I'm going to do is get my pupil a little bit darker, smack dab in the middle. But then as I come out, I'm going to start very gently flicking out. So there's no hard circle actually. This is just going to be little flicks out. Now, lines and direction matter, you guys. Sorry to keep going back and forth on the paper. If you have your eye, which I'll try to do it really big so you can see what I'm doing, think of it like a wheel. All of my lines are going to be going out like this. Okay, so hope you can see that. So when you're shading, your lines need to follow that direction. So you need to keep going that way. So I might actually have to keep rotating my board because it's a little hard for me to do staying in one direction, but it needs to follow that direction, just like that. Okay, so I've just made my explosive looking eye now. So now we gotta start doing the shapes down in here. So what I'm gonna start with is actually start around the outer edge, because the outer edge of my eye actually does need to be a little bit darker. So here's what I'm gonna do. Starting at the outer edge, I'm going to begin to pull in with a little bit of shadow. And I'm going to flick through occasionally. If you're noticing, I am very gently dragging actually a little bit of shadow all the way through, because sometimes I'm not sure I want this to be as bright, but I'm just sort of doing that as needed. All right, tell me if my eye gets out of focus, you guys, because I'm rotating. So if it gets out of frame, let me know. How are you guys doing? Now, something that I'm beginning to do now is keeping in mind with that last picture where the upper half is more shaded than the bottom half. That also applies to the lines that I'm dragging through. I am dragging darker ones through the upper half than I am the bottom half right now because it's going to be more in shadow. I'm also pulling through a little bit of shade all the way through that area just to kind of deepen it up because the little pockets, there's a little pockets, pocket. The pockets up here should be darker than the pockets down here. So I'm just deepening up a little bit and adding in some more little pokes. Am I still in focus? There we go. Thanks for staying with me, you guys. I told you this one would be a little bit longer than the last one. Okay, so now as I'm staring at it, oh, yes?
Look at all your hearts going at the screen.
So I'm starting to look at, I'm missing some shadow down here, so I'm going to come back and I'm just going to add a little bit more. Now this is where gradation comes into play, you guys. What I'm trying to do, and maybe you can see it on the camera, I'm not sure. What I'm trying to do is I'm going around, here's my little circle, okay? As I'm trying to go around it, I'm trying to not have a hard line appear. So what I'm doing, you'll see me with my pencils, I'll go this way, but then I come out this way, and I'm trying to make that line disappear so that it's a soft transition in. So that's your goal, is to get there to be no line right there. And that's what I'm trying to do right here, because I have a little bit of one showing up, so I'm trying to get that to go away. Now, if you see right now, what you should have is the upper half. I still have these little lines of the iris, but this is more in shade than down here. So if your whole eye is the same shade, you need to make sure you add a little bit of shadow towards the top. What the light does also, you guys, is kind of draws your eye in right here. Sorry about the pun, you guys. Now, the eye would look different, you guys, depending on the lighting. So this is a pretty dark eye. If you were to have this eye done where the light is hitting more straight onto the person's eye, you're going to see more brightness than this, but this is a nice dark, deep eye. All right, I'm okay with this for now. I'm going to leave this alone, and we're going to start working on the other aspects of this eye so we can get going. All right, so what I'm going to start doing now is working on the whites of the eyes. So tidbit here, whether you're painting or drawing, this is never white. It always has shade in it. So when I'm doing this one, as I think about shading the corners and leaving the inside with a nice highlight. So hold your pencil at the edge. I'm going to come in here from the edges and I'm going to begin to add a little bit of shading. See, I'm barely touching. And do it to both sides. Because here's the part I'm usually telling people to slow down with. We're going to finally start blending. So a little trick about blending, you guys. Blending needs to be done very gently. If you go crazy with the blending, because I know it's fun, the image will begin to look dirty or dingy. So you need to make sure that you're doing it. You're really just doing it to kind of soften any harsh lines, but you need to not be so like, I don't know, blend happy, where you're going crazy with it. So here's my first blend job. I'm going to grab my cotton swab and I'm just going to start coming in from the corners here, and I'm just going to very gently soften out the edge so that there's no line there. And you can go back and forth as many times as you need. I actually made to make the top corner a little bit darker, so I'm going to come up here and make this a bit darker. And I might have to come back in and blend one more time. Okay, I'm moving over to my tear duct, which I have not touched. I'm just going around the outside edge a little bit and adding just a smidgen of shadow. Okay. So what adding the shadow to the corners of the eye does is it grabs the emphasis of light to be here. Okay. All right, I'm moving on, you guys. So the next step is I'm going to add the lid line on the top of the eye as well as our lash line on the bottom of the eye. So a recap from last time, the lid line when the eye is open more or less follows the angle of the eye. So I'm going to start mine about in the middle. It does seem to taper in typically as it comes towards the end of the eye, inner corner of the eye, and it does taper in a little bit as it comes towards the outer of the eye. Make this line really soft, you guys, because typically as it comes off to either the inner or the outer, it's going to be a nice, gentle transition, so don't draw it super hard. Now, we talked about this last week, so I think we did work on it last week. We're going to come out from this line and work with a little bit of shadow. So if here's my line, what you're going to do is you're going to do maybe little circular motions, little in and outs, but you're going to very gently push out from that line really softly so it doesn't just appear as a giant line on top of the person's eye. And fun thing for today, you guys, we get to work on eyelashes. I like eyelashes. They're perhaps a little challenging for a lot of beginners, which is good. It means we'll have fun with that. Okay, now I'm going to add a little bit of shadow in here. So this space between the eye and the lid line is stark white, which it should not be. So I'm going to take my pencil, holding it far back, take my pencil and I'm going to add just a little bit of shadow through here, just to neutralize the white because it's too bright. Blending. I'm also going to come up from the actual eye and just gently extend some darker shadow, just a little bit. Okay, I'm trying to skedaddle on so I don't make this video too long. Let's start working on the bottom lid lash line. We worked on it last week, but it was kind of harsh and not quite accurate. So when you're drawing the bottom lash line, it is very light, you guys. You might add more as you go along, and that's fine. So here's my eye, and here's the bottom of my eye. If I draw this, it is really light, and what you'll end up doing is actually adding more shadow underneath of it, and that's usually what's going to make that stand out more. So don't get pressure happy and start adding a lot of darkness. So it's usually a little wider at this outer corner, which is over here, and it's going to kind of taper as it comes in. Now there's shadow underneath of here. So usually when you're looking at an eye, and someday actually I need to look at a skull. It actually helps you to understand where the lighting and the shadows are. If this is your eye, there is this nice kind of like sometimes you're really tired in the morning, you have that dark circles under your eye, they call it. That's that shadow right in here, right under the eye. So when I'm going to shade that, that's what I'm thinking of, is I'm very lightly going to take a little bit of shadow right under that lash line. I sort of think about it like a triangle, if that helps you visually. I'm sort of drawing it gets peaked right here in the middle and then comes back in. I don't know if it's picking up on the camera, but I am barely applying any shadow. It's very light. And this is why I say there's a lot you can do with just an HB, you guys. You don't have to have artist pencils. I like my artist pencils and I use them, but I didn't have them for actually quite a long time. So a lot can be done without artist pencils. Okay, now don't go any further down to that because that down there is not going to really matter. So don't overshade down there. We're going to stay close to the lid. And I might even erase some of it because I'm not sure I need all that. Yeah, I'm going to get rid of some of that right down there. Okay, so you can start to see it's emerging, but now we need to make it a smidgen darker underneath. So come in with your pencil and smack dab under that line. You're going to come in with a slightly darker shade right underneath of it. And I'm just trying to make it more visible. Now I'm cheating. I'm holding my pencil a lot closer. Part of the reason I'm doing that is because I have more control holding my pencil closer to the tip. Okay. Okay, I'm trying to go fast, so we're done with this. I'm going to move on. Okay, we're going to start adding in a little bit of shadow up here. We're going to add in an eyebrow shape, and we're going to do lashes last thing so we can hurry this on. So an eyebrows come in so many shapes, you guys. I just did this one because I like to draw this shape, but I will also try to link down different shaped eyebrows because they come in so many. What I'm going to try to do though is here's my inner corner. So I usually start my brow kind of in a little bit, maybe like a 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, and go up. That's where it's going to start. I go at a slight angle until you reach about towards the outer corner of the eye, and then come down. I do this very lightly though. I'm actually going to scoot mine down. I think I have mine too high. I'll put mine right about here. And when I'm drawing this for beginners, just so you can see it, I actually draw it out. So I draw the whole shape. So here's the shape of my eyebrow. Do not draw it hard because there are hairs in there. And unless somebody, I don't know, Sharpied their eyebrow, it's not going to look like that. So draw a little bit of a shape of where your eyebrow is going to go. Now we're going to talk about shading for the brow area. So again, if I was looking at a skull, which doesn't need to be scary or morbid, it's just how your head's built. If you have an eye, your eye sits in this hole in your skull, and then there's this bone up here where the eyebrow is, and there's a highlight right here, and there's a reason why we highlight this. So this is the bone that kind of protrudes out right there. So if you very gently, I'm doing a little circle just so you can see it, but if you do that, please make it really light because I'm going to have to go away. This is where my highlight's going to be. So when I'm going to take my pencil, I am going to shade the space between here and here. So very lightly come in here and shade. Get up right to where this little highlight's supposed to go. I'm shoving my shade into the eyebrow because your eyebrow, the holes of hair, if you will, would not be white. So the whole under layer of my eyebrow would have to be filled in anyway, so I don't mind. I'm even going to add just a little bit of shadow over here. Okay, I'm going to fill in my eyebrow. At least the first layer. Don't do any more. Just doing the first layer. Okay, blend. Trick about blending as well. Sometimes it helps if you blend in the opposite direction of your lines. All my lines are going this way, so I'm actually blending this way. Or little circulars. Little circulars will work as well. I'm going to come outside of that lid line. I'm just going to add a little more shadow.
Gianna says, slow down.
Uh-oh, someone says slow down. Okay. I will slow down. I will probably talk more than instead. So what I like to tell, remember I talked about this a little bit earlier. When you guys are working in anything, painting, drawing, doesn't really matter what you guys are doing. If you guys start studying something, clouds, eyes, noses, trees, you need to really study it as an artist. And so what that means is you might need to actually observe more than just like, oh, that's a pretty sky, or that person has pretty eyes. Really look at it. What is the shape? What is the shadow doing? Where is there a highlight? Start really studying features that you are interested in drawing or painting or whatever it is that you're working on, and work on studying as an artist. And how you study it means maybe you take notes. Maybe as you look at things, you take notes of, well, how does the shadows usually behave? Or what is the person's eye shape doing? And how many shapes of eyes can I find out and draw? Start doing different things like that to study the things that you are interested in so that you can get better at them. All right. Gianna, how are we doing, sweetie? I'll just keep talking if I'm going too fast. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about eyebrows, since I would like to do just a tiny bit. We're not going to do a whole lot with it, but I want you to do a little bit. So if you're
It's doing
looking,
good.
oh, good, sweetie. So we're gonna start working on the eyebrow. So one of the things about studying is that when you guys are all done with this today, you're gonna go into the mirror and look at your eyebrow. So when most people do eyebrows, like I said, mostly they get done really hard. I see this a lot, you guys. That is way too harsh. Now, what I want you to look at when you go look in the mirror is the direction of the hair. If anyone has taken the animal drawing class with me, what I've talked about is one of the most important things is direction of hair. So if you're doing your eyebrow, you need to look to see what direction the eyebrow hair is going. So if you have, let's see, get a cleaner spot. If I have my eyebrow, here's my shape. The hair over here tends to stick up a little bit. And then as it goes this way, the hair starts to go down this direction. So I don't want to see like pokey grass on your eyebrows. Make sure it's kind of going down. And you can sort of come outside of your line. So even though I drew a line, when I actually go to do the hair, I poke some of them outside of that line. Because if you saw somebody's eyebrow, unless the lady had eyebrows that are wonderfully plucked and drawn, they will come outside of that line. So make sure that you're doing that when you're shading and get them to come in and out of this little border. So I have my base layer of pencil. Now I'm going to begin doing my pokes of hair. So I'm going to start over here and I'm going to start flicking some hair up. Now in the middle, I don't care so much, especially for this exercise, to doing every single solitary hair. You're going to worry more, not even worry, but you're going to focus more on getting the flicks of hair at the bottom and the top of the brow. In the inside, I'm not going to worry quite so much about that. This is still my modified eyebrow, you guys. This is not a hyper detailed eyebrow, but it's not a sketch eyebrow either. How are we doing? The eyebrows making sense so far, you guys? Okay, I do long skinnies here towards the edge.
Janice is good.
I probably keep drawing eyebrows like this because I kind of wish my eyebrow looked like this. I also get usually a little bit lighter towards the end, you guys. Again, this is a different world. If ladies have a very drawn in eyebrow, this goes out the window. But a natural eyebrow, there usually is a little bit lighter towards the corner.
Colleen says, so lovely.
Oh, thanks, Colleen. Okay, so here is my eyebrow kind of drawn in. Now, I drew this one a little bit darker than my first eyebrow. If it's too dark, which I actually think mine's a smidgen dark, I'm going to come in here with my eraser and just lift out a little bit. I think this eyebrow is a smidgen dark at the bottom. Maybe my lady had too dark of an eye pencil. Now, we will dress this a different day because I don't think it's really the focus for today. But even in something like an eyebrow, there would be highlights, there'd be darker areas, there'd be lighter areas. I kind of want a lighter outside, so I'm coming back and redoing this because it looks a little bit stamped. All right, you guys, we're moving on to lashes, which I love doing lashes. So let's talk a little bit about do's and don'ts about lashes. So again, things that I see a lot when I work with beginners with lashes is I call them spiders. So I have a lot of artists who start with lashes like this.
Stephanie says, Ash says, good eye.
Aw, thanks. Okay, see this little eye here? We got spider legs, people. This is not how to do a lash. So we're going to work slowly and also work on a little bit of foreshortening with eyelashes. So typically with an eyelash, so I'm going to draw another one for you. So here's my eye, here's my little lid line. It's going to be directions. So towards the outer corner, and this is more or less, out of the outer corner it goes out this way, and towards this corner it goes this way, and then in the middle it goes up. So it's kind of like this nice little dome shape like this. Now, if you look at my picture up here that I did earlier, my lashes are kind of short. People have different length lashes. My brother has like the longest lashes ever. So his are like, oh, like really high. I would start pretty low. It tends to look more natural. And or some people do have though really long lashes like my brother. So try to make them conservative in the length. You don't need to make them too long. And typically, they will be a smidgen longer looking on the outer corner. So in this one, it's actually a pretty long lash out here, but I make them pretty little and sparse towards the inside of the eye. And then make sure when they're at the top that they're not too long. So let's start flicking. So let's talk about that. So when you flick, so here's my little line from my lid. You're going to do gentle little flicks, and they do curl slightly. I do mean slightly. Now again, everybody looks different. Their faces look different, and even their lashes look different. Some people have straight eyelashes. This person that I have drawn does not. They have slightly curly lashes. So that's why I'm curling mine. So we're going to start at the outer corner of my eye, and I'm going to gently curl slightly out. I'm going to turn my paper, you guys, because this is the wrong angle for me. This is kind of like anyone who's done trees with me, trees or grass, they're different lengths. Not every single one of your eyelashes is going to be exactly the same length. So sometimes they're long, sometimes they're short. But as I come towards the middle, I'm going to start changing that angle to almost straight up. So when it's right smack dab in the highest peak of the eye, it should be going straight up and down. So actually, sometimes I even will do one in the middle so I know what I'm going for, angle-wise. And then I'll do one here in the inside corner again. So it kind of gives me like a goal to work towards. If I know that the inside lash is going at the slight curve, I can keep changing my curve as I go along. I also make the lashes towards the inside a little bit lighter. The good news, you guys, you can always come back. So if you decide like my lash is too light, well, go back and make it darker. But it is really hard to lighten your lashes without completely demolishing them by erasing them. So start light, you can always go back. And in fact, that's what I did with my lashes in this first picture. I did them, and then I went back probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 times to get sort of the length and the fullness that I wanted. Which is now what I'm doing right now. I'm coming in, I'm adding little tiny flicks. I'm creating fullness, whatever girl wants, right? Fullness at the bottom of the lash area. I'm also pulling some lashes a different direction because sometimes they overlap each other in weird ways. They don't always have a perfectly spaced. Now you can see why we did this last, you guys. All this shading that we did underneath is really hard to do once you've added the lashes. So whether I'm painting or drawing, lashes are the last thing I do. All right, I'm not gonna go lash crazy, just like with the shading. You don't wanna go too much. Now, she's missing something. Does anyone know what it is? Bottom lashes. Now, I like doing bottom lashes. They are very dainty. They don't have to be, but I like to not maybe overemphasize them. Oh, actually, I need to close my gap. So I just noticed something, you guys. See this big gap I have right here? And I don't have it in my other one. I'm going to actually pull a lash a little bit lower, and I think I'm going to just shorten up this little space. Because it's too big.
Gianna says bottoms lashes.
Okay. All right, so bottom lashes. Bottom lashes are very dainty and very light. So when you're drawing the bottom lash, so here's my little space, they go like right next to / a little bit in from this little line in here. And you're going to very gently and very lightly pull out some lashes. And they get very sparse as they come in, at least for this drawing I did. So you're focusing your attention mostly on that outer corner. Oops. So think about you're kind of strategically placing your lashes because you don't want to add too many. And the same thing with this one. Go light, you guys. You can always come back and make it darker. Okay, I think I'm pretty happy with that for now, you guys. So, let's talk about goals. If you guys did this one exercise and you followed it along with me, that's awesome, and I'm happy that you guys did that with me today. What I want you to practice is actually drawing another eye. So between now and next week, here is your task. So this is a left eye. I would actually have you try to draw another eye over here so that you actually have the beginnings of what we could do a portrait. So here's a couple little tricks for doing that. So I'm going to flip my paper over for just a second because I want to talk about this. And we'll run through it together more next time just so that we can have all clear on the same page and do a whole lesson about it. But here's a little bit of tricks or start about rules about portraits and spacing. If you have, here's my line for keeping my eyes on the same plane. If you have your first eye drawn, so here's the beginning of my eye, okay? Very sloppy, but here's my eye. Whatever size this eye is, okay, you've measured it and you've done the sizing, whatever size this eye is, so even if I'd done this one, I would measure it. You're going to then take from the inner corner of the eye, you're going to measure this eye, and you're going to have one eye's width in between your eyes. So then when I draw my second eye, it would be over here. Okay? So if you were drawing another one, so you actually wanted to have two of these eyes done, you would have this eye, you would take your pencil or a ruler, you'd measure, and going from the inner corner over, that's how I would know where to draw the second eye. So a task I would like you to try. This is fun stuff I do when I'm doodling. do your first eye and do exactly the same process that we did today. There's only a couple things that are reversed. Is the tear duct will be on this corner, which we did today, but the tear duct over here will be in this corner. And then your eyebrow, same thing, it's just reversed. So eyebrow here, and you would do all the same shading, but you would do now 2 eyes on the same paper. And I would like you guys to try that. And we'll go over a lesson with it next time, like a real full one. But I want you to try this next week and see how it works. Then lastly, here's one more little thing I'd like to go over with you guys today, is different ways and different papers to do eyes. So I did this eye earlier this week using toned paper. So some of you guys that have been in drawing class with me, we've been playing with toned papers. And I know not everybody has toned papers. So we tried to figure out things that people have laying around the house that they could do this with. And we'll do a lesson on this, because I know if you've never done it before, it could be a little confusing. Toned paper is just anything that's colored. So it just doesn't have to be nothing white. It can be brown, it can be blue, it can be green. It could be anything that's just not white. I think stick with more neutral tones looks best, but that doesn't matter. You can make it green, make it blue. So what I have here is a piece of construction paper. And if you guys have construction paper laying around, this would work perfect for this. So you need construction paper, and then you'll need just a regular pencil, and you would do all of the drawing that we did earlier. You would draw it out, draw your eye, and begin shading. The difference is you would actually take a white pencil, and this is just a white Crayola pencil, which a lot of people do have. If you have a white Crayola pencil, you would go in and you would actually use the white pencil as your highlight. And so all those little highlights running through here would be done with a pencil. But we'll do a lesson on it next time. But if it's some fun stuff to keep you busy, I want you to try different things. Draw eyes. I draw eyes all the time on everything. In fact, I think I got in trouble for it a little bit because I had it on all my homework. But try, you guys. I want you to try your eyes. Try 2 lined up with each other. And we'll discuss more about features next week. We might do eyes again, or we might do something else. If you guys shoot up in the comment section what facial feature you would like to learn next. It can either be noses, ears, or lips. So decide what you guys would like to learn next. Thanks so much, you guys, for tuning in. I will post in the comments different eye shapes and different eyebrow shapes just to help you along with your practicing. Thanks, guys. Bye.